Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're diving deep into a really intense and profoundly moving story about the Fletcher family. We've got Step, DeAnne, and their three kids, soon to be four, and they're navigating this just chaotic and frankly terrifying new life in Steuben, North Carolina.
Yeah, this story is it's really a masterclass in parental resilience when everything's falling apart. We're looking at sources covering, crushing professional failure, huge financial anxiety, the really complex inner world of a child, and then this chilling local mystery that forces them to face things, well, things way beyond the everyday.
So our mission here is to understand all these layers of pressure on Step and DeAnne. First, you have the collapse of Step's whole identity, his independence. And second, there's this terrifying collision between their oldest son Stevie's secret world and the very real dangers kind of lurking in their new town.
It's an incredibly intense story, really essential to unpack, though.
Okay, let's get into it.
We really have to start with Step's professional crisis, I think, because it just colors everything he does later. He's 32, he's got a brand new history PhD, right? But he's stuck writing technical manuals.
For a software company, 8-Bits Inc., and making, what, like $30,000 a year, which even then wasn't great. He calls himself a wage slave, bitterly.
Yeah, and he calls himself the junk man. It really shows how low he feels. It's not just the pay, it's the huge contrast with his past success.
Right. He had that massive hit game for the Atari, Hacker Snack, a puzzle game, sold really well.
Huge hit. Royalties were bringing in like $40,000 at one point. That was serious money back then.
Absolutely. But then the market shifted, and those royalties just plummeted down to $7,000.
Oof. Yeah, that's a cliff. And that financial crash is exactly what forced him into this programming job he hates, reporting to this guy, Dickie Northanger. The psychological weight of that, going from indie success to corporate grunt work, is massive. Feels like total failure, academic and professional.
And the indignity just keeps piling on. He finds out 8-Bit Skink, his company, is secretly developing for the IBM PC.
A machine Step famously despises. He thinks the graphics are, quote, pathetic.
Exactly. But that hypocrisy, it turns out to be Step's potential lifeline. The sources show this triggers a really key clause in his contract.
Ah, right. If he quits now, before they go public with the IBM support, he's actually allowed to leave programming entirely, contractually free.
He sees a way out, but he can't take it yet, can he? They desperately need the money.
Which leads us straight to DeAnne, the fish lady as she's called, and she is struggling immensely.
Pregnant with their fourth Zap, the financial stress is just crushing. We learn they've missed payments on their house in Vigor. They're scared of foreclosure.
And she's isolated. Step's working these brutal hours, sometimes literally not seeing daylight for 2 months straight.
Wow.
So he can't come home early, can't help out like he did with the other pregnancies. She feels trapped, doesn't have the car because Step needs it for work. She tries to frame it, like this pioneer spirit, always moving.
But deep down, she wishes they'd never come to Steuben. You can feel that desperation.
Yeah. And all that turmoil at home, the money worries, the identity crisis.
Yeah.
It perfectly mirrors the crisis hitting their oldest son, Stevie.
The doorman. He's the responsible one, the eldest, but he's having a terrible time at his new school, Western Alamania Primary, just severely isolated.
And this isolation, it seems directly tied to the school, specifically one teacher, Mrs. Jones, second grade. The whole thing blows up over Stevie's project.
Which sounds amazing, actually. An intricate clay model, underwater scene.
Yeah, octopus, starfish, prying open a clam. Really detailed. Clearly A-level work.
But Mrs. Jones gives him a C, and the reason she gives is just baffling.
It is. She says it showed a lack of respect. Why?
Yeah.
Because he didn't use a plastic cover, and his typed report was too long. Basically showing grown-up habits he learned from his dad, the PhD grad student.
So punishment for being too smart. Or too much like Step.
Exactly. It feels personal, and it gets meaner. She starts mocking him in class, calls him Stephen Ball Lover Fletcher.
Oh, that's awful. His name's Bolivar, right? Not even Stephen.
Right. Just cruel. And Stevie's response is just heartbreaking. He retreats completely, spends recess hiding in the library.
And relies heavily on these imaginary friends. Scotty, Jack, Van, Sandy, a whole group.
Yeah, complex, named friends, his coping mechanism.
So Step, already boiling over his own failures, he channels all that rage into protecting Stevie. He goes back to the school during his lunch break, and this confrontation with Mrs. Jones, it's a standout moment.
He doesn't just go for a chat, does he? It's more like a planned attack. He confronts her, but he's got a hidden microcassette recorder running.
Whoa. Using his tech skills, that tool of corporate suspicion, for a school fight.
Exactly. And you know what? It works. He gets her on tape admitting she downgraded Stevie's project just to promote some other kid, JJ.
So Step, now in full protective dad mode, threatens her. Says he'll go to the school board, the principal, Dr. Mariner.
And that threat works. It basically neutralizes her, the main visible enemy in Stevie's life at that point.
It's interesting, though, isn't it? He fights this external, obvious threat so hard.
Only to immediately face these invisible internal threats you can't just record and neutralize. This is where the family dynamics get incredibly complicated.
Yeah, it feels like they're suddenly under siege from multiple directions. First, within their own church community, their ward, there's this woman, Sister LeSueur.
Described as powerful, manipulative. She claims she got a vision.
About Stevie being unrighteous, clearly trying to drive a wedge between him and his parents, trying to pull him away from their guidance.
Step and DeAnne see right through it. They recognize it as an attempt to, quote, steal their son's loyalty.
So they counter-program immediately. They sit Stevie down and reinforce this core family rule. A good person would never tell us to keep a secret from our mom and dad, reasserting family as the ultimate authority.
And Step doesn't leave it there. He goes right to the power source, her husband, Brother LeSueur. Calls him up.
And basically lays down the law, asserts his authority as the father, and warns him, very clearly, stay away from my kids. It's bold. Shows how desperate he is to protect their space.
So while Step is fighting that battle, DeAnne's fighting her own internal fears about Stevie. She's convinced he needs professional help, especially with the imaginary friends becoming so prominent.
And she subtly gets Step to meet with a psychiatrist, Dr. Weeks.
Who, conveniently, happens to be the mother of Step's home teaching companion, Lee. That's how DeAnne engineers it.
Step's really resistant at first, isn't he? He's afraid they'll pathologize their religious beliefs, like call their faith a delusion.
And that fear kind of comes true, at least in Step's view. Dr. Weeks suggests the friends might not just be coping. Maybe they're hallucinations.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And she links it all back to father fear, edible stuff, even referencing something from Stevie's early childhood when he felt an evil presence.
Step must have been furious, seeing their spiritual journey reduced to a diagnosis.
He was, but he also gets it. He realizes DeAnne set it up out of just deep, desperate love and concern for Stevie.
So just as they're grappling with these invisible things, the church politics, the psych diagnosis Step confronts maybe the most chilling threat of all. And this one is very real, flesh and blood, right there in his workplace.
Gallo glass.
Yeah. His coworker, young programmer, insists on being called Salad and Gallo Glass. Step already distrusts him.
And then comes the company picnic. Step sees Gallo glass interacting with his own little daughter, Betsy, who's only 2. Sees something
Off.
too familiar.
This is where the source material gets genuinely horrifying. Step has this sudden, awful realization. Gallo Glass harbors pedophilic fantasies.
The text explicitly mentions Gallo glass keeping these treasured stories of times he's cleaned the private parts of little girls. It's incredibly dark. That juxtaposition, the mundane office setting, and this profound evil.
And Step's reaction is just cold clarity. He decides, right then and there, Gallo Glass will never be near his children. Ever.
So you have these invisible, almost metaphysical threats swirling around Stevie, and then this terrifyingly real, mundane evil right next to Step at work. It's overwhelming.
All these simultaneous battles against the church, against psychiatry's labels, against this actual monster, they really set the stage for the final, terrifying climax involving the lost boys of Steuben.
Yeah, the first really ominous sign is that package. Anonymous.
Yeah.
Contains the police song, Every Breath You Take.
Creepy. Understandably unnerves them, makes them feel watched.
Though Detective Douglas later thinks it was probably just Mrs. Jones, the teacher, or some other bully getting revenge, he doesn't initially connect it to the bigger thing.
The real connection, the horrifying one, comes from DeAnne. She's just reading the newspaper, an article about the police investigation into missing kids in the area.
Young white boys disappearing. The lost boys.
And she suddenly sees it. Stevie's imaginary friends, Jack, Sandy, Van, Peter, their names match the victims. Jonathan Lee, Alexander Booth, Van Rosewood, Peter Kimeni.
Chilling. Just an absolutely chilling coincidence that can't be a coincidence.
So Step, now completely convinced of this unbelievable truth, calls Detective Douglas, but he insists on speaking directly to Douglas, won't give the source otherwise.
He wants to make sure the detectives understand the gravity, the sheer strangeness of this information. He believes Douglas needs it to recognize the truth.
Which brings us to Christmas Eve, the climax. Stevie invites his friends over.
Step and DeAnne are obviously horrified, but what can they do? They decide to honor Stevie's reality, play along.
And then Detective Douglas arrives, and in that moment, the boundary just collapses. The missing boys appear, visible.
Visible to Step, to DeAnne, and to the detective. It confirms Stevie has somehow been holding them there, protecting their presence, maybe.
It's just this overwhelming, heartbreaking moment of truth. And Stevie, the doorman, he reveals his secret job. Tells his parents, they told me they were all buried under the house, and so I...
Referring to that Southern-style house construction built up off the ground, the kind DeAnne always hated.
He'd been acting as this tragic anchor, holding their spirits maybe until they could be found, and his final words, just incredible courage.
Yeah. He explains he was just doing what he thought he was supposed to do. I just did what you taught me. I didn't mean to die, but now I have to go.
And then he's gone. The bodies are recovered from under the house, confirms the killer's method, the location. Stevie dies, having done this final selfless act. Devastating, but necessary in a way.
Yeah, this deep dive really shows us that courage.
Yeah.
It isn't always loud or physical, is it? Sometimes it's that quiet internal choice to face an overwhelming, terrifying truth, like Stevie did.
And looking at Step and DeAnne, what really stands out is that intense parental struggle. Wanting to control everything, protect their kids, fighting the teacher, the church lady.
Right. Fighting the visible threats.
But ultimately realizing they had to trust Stevie's unique, terrifying reality, even when the experts, like Dr. Weeks, were basically calling it delusion.
And the aftermath, it offers this profound sense of closure for Step, doesn't it? And a return to his true self, maybe. After Stevie dies, he finally quits 8 Bits Inc.
Feels that freedom.
That essential freedom, yeah. He finishes his new programming contract for Agamemnon, which lets him work from home. He can finally be there for his remaining kids, including the new baby, Zap.
Who has serious health issues, right? Seizures, low muscle tone.
Exactly. So Step, the academic who kind of failed at corporate life, he finds his stability, his purpose, back where he started in a way.
Right.
Working from home, protecting his family directly.
And that final exchange between Step and Detective Douglas really ties it all up. Step says, you can't use this to prove it to anybody else. He knows the truth is unprovable by normal standards.
But Douglas gives the perfect answer, really. He says, don't have to prove it to anybody else, I know it. So now I'll never rest till I find this guy and stop him.
Which leads us to the takeaway for you, the listener.
Yeah. We live in this world saturated with information, right? Everything demands proof, verification. But what happens when you're faced with an essential truth? Something you know is real, but nobody else can verify. Where does your certainty lie then?
And what's the price of knowing that unprovable truth?
Think about that as you go about your day.